It was one of those nights when everything felt a little too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. The kind of night where the air has a thick, oppressive weight to it, making every small sound feel like an echo. I remember it clearly. I was about 24, driving through the back roads of Texas, making a late-night delivery. The truck was my home, the road my constant companion. But that night was different. I had just dropped off a load in a small, isolated town, and the plan was to make my way to the next stop by morning. But as I turned off the highway onto a dirt road to rest for a bit, I noticed something unusual: a group of people gathered around a fire pit. I parked my truck at a distance, keeping to the shadows, curious but cautious. It wasn't unusual to encounter people out there. A lot of folks do strange things in the middle of nowhere, but something about this gathering was off. As I sat in the truck, I saw one of them, a man with a hood, hold up something shiny. At first, I thought it was a knife, but then I saw it more clearly: a Ouija board. I froze. My gut tightened, and something cold brushed against the back of my neck. The fire flickered in the distance, casting erratic shadows across their faces. I shouldn't have stayed, but my curiosity got the better of me. I cracked the window just a bit, listening, trying to figure out what they were doing. The man in the hood started to chant something under his breath, his fingers hovering over the planchette. The others were dead silent, their eyes wide, almost trance-like. Suddenly, the planchette moved, gliding across the board, spelling out one word: leave. I thought I misheard it. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the fog of exhaustion. But no, there it was again, spelled out in clear, deliberate letters: leave. The people around the fire didn't move, their expressions growing more and more intense, as if they were waiting for something. I felt my heartbeat race. What the hell was going on? Was this just some weird cult or something more? Then, one of them, another man, this one dressed in a plaid shirt, spoke up, his voice trembling. "What do you mean, leave?" The Ouija board's response was immediate, the planchette shifting with a force I couldn't explain. It spelled out, "He's coming." I didn't stick around to find out what that meant. I couldn't. I started the truck, peeling out of there faster than I should have. But as I did, I swear to God, I saw someone, or something, standing in the distance by the fire. And that's when the temperature in the truck dropped, like an invisible hand was pressing against the windows. The chill didn't go away. Even as I sped down the winding dirt road, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air in the truck had turned ice cold, despite the fact that the night itself wasn't particularly cold. My breath fogged up the windshield as if I was driving through a storm, but there wasn't a single cloud in the sky. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind me. But there was nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That presence from the fire, it clung to me. It felt like it was inside the truck, a cold weight pressing down on my chest, suffocating me. About 20 minutes down the road, the truck's engine sputtered. I cursed under my breath. This wasn't the time for mechanical issues, not with what had just happened. I pulled over to the side, trying to stay calm. I popped the hood and checked the engine, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But I knew something was wrong. That gut feeling wasn't going away. I got back in the truck, deciding to try to start it again. It sputtered, then started up with a harsh jolt. The lights flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw a figure in the distance, standing right in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, heart hammering in my chest. There was no one there. I let out a shaky breath, telling myself it was just my nerves. I had to get to my next stop. I had to keep going. But as I put the truck back into gear and pulled away, I caught something out of the corner of my eye, just a flicker, like a shadow moving along the side of the road. It was too fast to make out, but it definitely wasn't just the trees. My mind raced back to the Ouija board, the warning, "He's coming." I told myself it was nothing. My mind was playing tricks on me, that's all. The exhaustion was catching up to me. I just needed to focus on the road. But the road seemed to stretch on forever, the dark trees on either side of me closing in. And then, I saw it. A sign, worn and faded, that read, "Welcome to Westfield." Westfield. I didn't know a Westfield. I had no memory of passing any town by that name. In fact, I'd been driving for hours without seeing anything but empty roads and sparse houses. I wasn't even sure how far I had gone. I glanced at the gas gauge, half full. But when I checked the time, I nearly choked. Hours had passed, and I couldn't explain how. I was sure I had only been driving for a short while. How was that even possible? I checked the map on my phone, but there was no signal. I was in the middle of nowhere. A sense of panic crept up my spine. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was just too tired. But I could feel it, something was off. The road ahead seemed endless, like I was trapped in some kind of loop. And that's when I saw him. The man from the fire pit. The one who had been holding the Ouija board. He was standing by the side of the road. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow and dark. And he was staring straight at me. I slammed on the brakes again, swerving to avoid him. My heart pounded in my chest as I swerved to the side, throwing the truck into a skid. I managed to regain control, but when I glanced at the side mirror, the man was gone. But the feeling, that cold, suffocating weight, was still there. I tried to keep my hands steady on the wheel, but the more I thought about what I'd just seen, the more my body seemed to betray me. Sweat poured down my face, even though the temperature in the truck was so cold I could see my breath. I didn't understand. Where had he gone? That man, or whatever he was, couldn't have just vanished like that. The road felt different now, as if the night itself was closing in on me. I looked ahead, trying to focus, but the edges of my vision blurred, like the darkness was swallowing up the world around me. The headlights didn't seem to be cutting through the night the way they should, and I could barely make out the faintest outline of the road. I should have pulled over. I should have stopped and waited for the morning light. But something kept me moving forward, like an invisible force was guiding me down that twisted, endless road. And then I heard it. A soft whisper at first, so quiet that I thought I imagined it. But as the truck hummed along the road, the whisper became clearer. It was coming from the back of the cab, from the sleeper area where I usually kept my bags. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was just the wind, I told myself. Or maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, exhaustion creeping in. But it was there again, louder this time, and it sounded almost like voices, like a group of people arguing in hushed tones. The words weren't clear, but I caught a few phrases that made my stomach drop. It's coming. He's still here. Don't look back. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just the radio static or the hum of the tires on the gravel. But the voices kept getting louder, like they were coming closer, right behind me. I glanced in the rearview mirror again. There was nothing there. But as soon as I turned my head back to the road, I saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road, too tall, too dark. It was the same man from earlier, his face obscured by the shadows. His eyes were wide open, black as pitch. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. He was just standing there, staring. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I tried to push the accelerator, but the truck was sluggish, as though something was holding it back. Suddenly, the voices got louder, more distinct, and I could swear I heard my own name. Jared. Jared, I gripped the wheel harder, my knuckles turning white. There was no way this was real. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't stay here, no, I had to keep moving. But no matter how fast I tried to drive, the figure was always there, just on the edge of the road, following me. And then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the distance, barely visible in the dark, was a shadow stretching across the road, long and twisted. It was shaped like a human, but the limbs were bent at unnatural angles, like it was crawling across the ground, too fast for my eyes to fully comprehend. I slammed on the brakes again, the truck skidding to a stop. I could feel my pulse in my throat, choking me, but I forced myself to look out the windshield. The creature, it wasn't just on the side of the road anymore. It was right in front of me. Its face was twisted, stretched beyond what a human face should be. Its eyes were too wide, too black, and they were staring directly at me. I couldn't breathe. I could hear the voices again, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have come here." I closed my eyes, desperately trying to shake it off. I had to get out of there. I had to leave. But when I opened my eyes again, the creature was gone. The road was empty. The shadow had vanished. But the voices were still there. They were in my head now. "Leave, now, or it's too late." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The air inside the truck felt thick, like I was suffocating under the weight of something I couldn't explain. My heart was pounding in my chest, my hands shaking on the wheel. I wanted to scream, but my throat was too tight, my voice trapped somewhere deep inside me. I glanced around again, every corner of the truck feeling like it was closing in on me. The creature was gone, but the lingering feeling, it was still there. Something was following me. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it, like a presence just out of sight, breathing down my neck. I shifted the truck into gear, trying to get it moving again. The engine roared to life with a rough cough, and I pushed the gas pedal harder than I should have. The truck lurched forward, the tires spinning on the loose gravel before finally gaining traction. But the moment I started moving, I heard something. A sound that made my blood freeze in my veins. A low, guttural growl. It wasn't human. It wasn't even close. It was deep, vibrating in my bones, like something was chasing me. My eyes darted to the rearview mirror, expecting to see nothing. But this time, there was something there. A pair of glowing red eyes. It was moving fast, too fast for anything human. It wasn't running, it was gliding, hovering just above the ground. The eyes locked onto mine through the mirror, and I felt the weight of its gaze, like a hand wrapped around my throat, squeezing. I didn't dare look away. I couldn't. My foot slammed harder on the accelerator, but the truck seemed to struggle against me, like something was holding it back. The growl got louder, closer. I could almost hear it scratching against the metal of the truck, like claws dragging across the roof. I didn't know how much more I could take. My entire body felt like it was on fire with fear. The eyes in the mirror weren't the only thing I could see now. The shadows around me were moving, shifting. I saw them darting between the trees, coming closer. My headlights flickered, illuminating brief glimpses of twisted shapes in the darkness. The creatures were everywhere. They were surrounding me. "You can't outrun us." It wasn't just a voice. It was a command, like the words were etched directly into my brain. I had no choice. The road ahead was empty, but the shadows were closing in, growing thicker with each passing second. The voices were all around me now, filling the cab, rising to a deafening crescendo. "You should have left. Now you're ours." My hands were slick with sweat, the wheel slipping beneath my grip. The truck surged forward, but the faster I went, the closer the shadows seemed to get. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't afford to. I just had to drive, had to escape, then the truck jerked violently. I screamed, my heart in my throat, as the engine sputtered and stalled. The headlights flickered and died, plunging me into darkness. The growl stopped. The voices stopped. But something was still out there. I could feel it, standing just beyond the reach of the truck's dim glow. The presence was closer now, almost within arm's reach. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. The door to the truck creaked open. I didn't hear it at first. But then I felt the cold rush of air hit my face. I turned my head slowly, just enough to catch the outline of someone, standing next to the truck. It was the man from the fire pit again, his face now completely obscured by the hood, his eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. His mouth moved, but no words came out. I could see his lips curling into a grin, wide and unnaturally stretched, like he was savoring my fear. Then, finally, the words came. "It's too late." I tried to open my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. I couldn't breathe. I could feel the weight of something pressing in from all sides, like the very air was suffocating me. And then, just as quickly as it all began, everything went silent. The truck engine roared back to life. The headlights flickered back on, and I was moving again, speeding down the road, faster than I had ever gone before. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was nothing there. I was alone. I couldn't explain what had just happened. The truck was moving again, the engine running as if nothing had ever gone wrong. My hands were still shaking, my heart still racing, but the terrifying figures in the dark, the growls, the glowing eyes, they were gone. It was like a nightmare that had never happened. But it had happened. I couldn't just forget about it. I kept driving, though I had no idea where I was going anymore. The road ahead seemed to stretch into infinity. It was just me, the truck, and the darkness closing in. The trees on either side of the road looked like they were reaching toward me, their long limbs stretching into the night. Every shadow felt like it was hiding something, like the world itself was conspiring against me. And then, just when I thought the terror had passed, I saw it again. A figure standing by the side of the road. This time, it wasn't the man in the hood, it was something else. Taller, thinner, with a face that looked like it had been carved out of stone. Its eyes were wide, empty black pits, its skin a shade of gray that didn't look right, like it wasn't supposed to be alive. Its lips were pulled back into a grotesque smile that didn't match the expression in its eyes. I didn't stop this time. I couldn't. I sped past the figure, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure didn't move, didn't even flinch. It just stood there, watching me as I passed by, its dark eyes never leaving mine. And then, just as I thought I'd escaped it, I heard something that made my blood run cold. A voice. "You're still here." It was faint at first, like a whisper carried by the wind. But it grew louder, more distinct, until I could hear it clearly, ringing in my ears. "You never left." I glanced at the rearview mirror again, terrified of what I might see. But this time, I saw something worse. The figure wasn't in the mirror. Instead, there was a reflection of the road, a road that should have been empty, but there, standing in the middle of the lane, was the same twisted, impossible creature from before. It wasn't a figure anymore, it was a shape, shifting and warping, its form bending in ways that made my stomach turn. I slammed on the brakes again, but nothing happened. The truck wasn't stopping. The brake pedal felt like it was stuck, unresponsive. The figure in the mirror came closer, moving toward the truck, its limbs twisted, snapping unnaturally with each step. The voice in my head grew louder. "You can't escape." I fought against the wheel, trying to control the truck, but the creature was right there now, pressing its face against the windshield, its eyes wide and unblinking. I could see its mouth open, stretching impossibly wide, revealing sharp teeth that seemed to go on forever. Then, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, everything was different. The truck was still moving, but it was no longer the same road. The asphalt had faded into a rough, cracked surface, and the trees were replaced by barren, twisted branches that seemed to claw at the sky. The air was thick, and a low, heavy fog had settled in, rolling over the truck like some kind of suffocating blanket. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. It was colder than before, colder than I had ever felt in my life, and the truck's engine was eerily quiet. I didn't know how much time had passed. There were no signs, no landmarks, no familiar roads or towns. It felt like I had crossed some invisible boundary, like I was driving through a place where time didn't exist, or worse, a place where it didn't matter. I checked the rearview mirror, no creature, no glowing eyes. But that didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it made everything feel worse. It was as if the creature had simply disappeared, leaving me with a sense of emptiness that seemed to echo in every corner of the truck. The voices were gone now, but the silence was unbearable. I kept driving. I had no choice. The road seemed endless, twisting and turning in unnatural ways. No matter how long I drove, it was always the same. The fog, the dead trees, the cracked pavement, everything looked like it had been frozen in time, like I was driving through a nightmare that had no end. Then, the figure appeared again. It wasn't the man from before. It wasn't the creature either. It was different. It was more like a shadow, an indistinct form that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its presence. It was there, watching me, waiting. And then, the voice. But this time, it wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus, a cacophony of whispers and murmurs, all overlapping each other. You can't escape. You belong here now. He's coming. I tried to speed up, but the truck's engine began to sputter. It was like it didn't want to move forward anymore. I slammed my foot on the pedal, but the truck was slow, sluggish, like something was dragging it down. The fog was thicker now, pressing in around me. I could barely see the road ahead. I checked the mirror again. There was nothing behind me. But as soon as I looked forward, the road ahead changed. The trees were gone. The fog cleared just enough to reveal an old, dilapidated house at the end of the road. It was like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to go anywhere near that house. But I had no choice. The truck slowed, coming to a stop on its own, as if the road itself had decided to take me there. The door creaked open. I didn't remember opening it. A figure stood in the doorway of the house, its features indistinct, just a silhouette against the dim light. I could hear it, its voice was faint, but unmistakable. Welcome home. And then, I understood. It wasn't just the road that had changed. It was me. I had never left. I wasn't supposed to leave. This place, this nightmare, I was a part of it now, just like those people at the fire, just like the man with the Ouija board. The figure in the doorway stepped forward, and the world around me seemed to collapse. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't mean anything anymore. Every moment feels like it stretches on forever, but there's no day, no night. Just an endless fog, thick and suffocating, wrapping itself around me. The truck is gone. The road is gone. There's nothing but this place, this house. And the voices. They never stop. You shouldn't have stayed. You could have left. It's too late now. I try not to listen, but it's impossible. They're inside my head, crawling through my thoughts, picking at my sanity until nothing feels real anymore. The house is dark, the air musty and damp, like it hasn't been lived in for years. Every room is the same, empty, silent, save for the whispers. The walls seem to close in on me, their peeling paint like the remnants of something once alive, now decayed and forgotten. I've tried leaving. I've tried walking out the door, but every time, I end up back here, standing in the same dark hallway, staring at the same faded wallpaper. No matter how far I walk, the house doesn't end. It just loops, turning me around, leading me back to the same place. And then, I saw him again. The man from the fire pit. His face is pale now, almost ghostly, and his eyes, they're empty, like there's nothing left inside. His lips curl into a twisted smile, and he steps forward, his footfalls silent on the floorboards. You were never meant to leave. His voice is like sandpaper, scraping against my skin. You're one of us now. I want to scream. I want to run. But my body won't move. It's like I'm paralyzed, trapped in this place with him. The man raises his hand, pointing to the doorway behind me. I don't want to look, but I can't help myself. When I turn, the door is open. Beyond it is, him. The thing. The creature. Its body is twisted, like it's been stretched and pulled out of shape. Its eyes are wide and black, reflecting nothing. It's standing in the doorway, watching me, waiting for me to make the next move. I step back. I don't know why, but I do. You're ours now, Jared. That's when I realize. He's calling me by name. He knows me. The shadows around the room start to move, twisting into shapes I can't quite comprehend. The walls pulse as if they're alive, breathing in and out with the rhythm of my own terrified heartbeat. And the whispers, the voices, they grow louder. It's too late. You can't leave. You'll never leave. The door slams shut behind me, and I'm trapped. The creature steps forward, its limbs moving in unnatural ways, like it's floating, like it's not bound by the laws of physics. Its mouth opens, but this time, it isn't a grin, it's a cavern, a dark abyss that seems to pull in all the light around it. I want to scream. I want to fight back, but my body won't obey. I can feel my skin crawling, my soul shriveling under the weight of its gaze. And then, the last voice, clearer than all the others. Welcome home, Jared. The darkness closes in. And I understand now. This place. This nightmare. It's where I belong. I've always been here. I never left. I never will. The thing about places like this house, this nightmare, is that nothing ever ends. It loops, it repeats, it drags you further into the dark. I've stopped fighting. There's no point anymore. The creature, the man, the voices, they all want something from me, but I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I gave in. I'm not sure when I stopped resisting, when I stopped trying to leave. It just happened. The days, or whatever passes for time here, bleed together. There's no sun, no stars, no cycle. Just the same twisted, decaying house and the same cold shadows. The whispers still surround me, always just out of reach, like a distant hum. I can't tell if they're coming from inside my head or from somewhere deeper, from the very walls themselves. But they're never quiet. They're always there, urging, pulling, pressing me closer to the inevitable. You can't hide. You belong here. He's waiting. I've tried to speak. I've tried to ask them why, but no one answers. They don't need to. I already know. I've always known. They've been waiting for me to understand that there is no escape. There is no freedom. Only the waiting. The silence. The suffocating pull of the darkness. There's a room here. I didn't see it before, but now it's impossible to ignore. It's at the end of the hallway. Its door is cracked open, just a sliver, but I can feel the weight of it. The pull. I walk toward it, like I don't have a choice. I don't. Inside, it's dark, but not the kind of darkness that hides things, it's the kind of darkness that reveals them. I can't see it, but I can feel it. It's alive. It's watching me. I know it's been waiting for me. I step closer, and the door creaks open just a little more. A faint, red light pulses from within the room, casting long, grotesque shadows along the floor. The smell hits me first, rot, decay, something ancient and wrong. My heart pounds in my chest, but I can't stop myself from stepping inside. The room is small, its walls lined with strange symbols, scratched into the wood like they've been there for centuries. The air is thick, suffocating, and it feels like the room is shrinking around me. And then I see it. There's a figure at the far corner of the room, just standing there, motionless. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. It's not human. Its skin is stretched tight, too tight, like it's been sewn together from pieces of something else. Its eyes are hollow, endless voids that seem to suck the very light from the room. I can't breathe. I can't move. It speaks, its voice low and grating, like stones scraping across glass. Welcome to your final rest. I feel my knees buckle. I want to run, but there's nowhere to go. The walls are closing in. The shadows are alive, and they're coming for me. The thing in the corner starts to move, its long, twisted limbs dragging across the floor, its gaze never leaving mine. I finally manage to take a step back, but it's too late. The room, the house, they're shifting. The walls are folding in on themselves, the floor buckling beneath me. I scream, but the sound is swallowed by the darkness. And I realize something then. I've been here before. I've been walking this path for years, decades even, never realizing that the road I've been on was always leading back to this place. The house, the nightmare, it's not just a location. It's me. It always was. There is no escape. There never was. There's a point where fear becomes numbness. Where you stop fighting. Where you stop even caring about escaping because you realize, you never really had a choice to begin with. The walls around me have stopped shifting. The air is no longer thick with suffocating fog, but it's colder now, colder than I've ever felt. And somehow, it feels more real. The room, the shadows, the creature, they all feel like they belong to me now. Like I belong to them. I don't know what happened to the house, or if it even exists anymore. I don't know if I'm still in the same place I was when I first saw that figure, that man with the Ouija board, or if I've crossed into something else entirely. All I know is that I'm standing here in this darkness, surrounded by them, and nothing can change it. The figure, no, the thing, stands before me now. Its face is a mess of blackened skin and teeth, its eyes still hollow, still sucking the very essence of life from me. I'm not sure if it's waiting for me to speak or if it's waiting for something else, something darker. I open my mouth, but no sound comes out. You've been chosen. Its voice is the same low, grating tone, as if it's made from the air itself, from the fabric of this place, of this endless nightmare. I can't fight it. I can't escape it. There is no other option but to listen. You belong here now. I feel the weight of its words, and I can't help but believe them. There's nothing left in me. The truck, the road, the miles I drove, they're gone. It's always been this way. I can't even remember what it felt like to drive that truck, to feel the wind on my face, to know the warmth of the sun. It's all faded, lost, swallowed by the darkness of this house, this space. I realize, with a cold certainty, that I will never leave. Not because I'm trapped, but because I've already become part of it. The house, the road, the creatures, they were all just waiting for me to understand. I try to move, but my legs feel heavy. My body refuses to obey, as if it's already surrendering. The thing in front of me steps closer, its grotesque form hovering in the dim light, and I know, it knows, that this is the end. There is no escaping. There's no more fight left in me. I reach out instinctively, but my hand doesn't feel like my own. The shadows pull at me, wrap around me, suffocate me, and as the creature's hand touches mine, I feel everything, collapse. And in that moment, the world goes quiet. No more voices. No more shadows. No more pain. Just silence.